The most common belief today is a concept called calories in, calories out. Our body requires energy to function, which we get from food in form of calories. Basically, food equals calories equals fuel. What does this concept tell us is that we have to burn as many calories as we eat. Everyone has its own daily calorie needs, so as an example, let's take an average human being that requires 2000 calories a day for functioning properly. The idea is that if this pal eats less than 2000 calories a day, he will lose weight. And if he eats more than 2000 calories, he will gain weight, as simple as that. And this is what we're actually doing when we are dieting. We count calories, eat exactly as it is prescribed, let's say 2000 calories, but we are hungry all the time, because these 2000 calories will not be all used as energy. And depending on what we eat, some calories will be burned, but some will immediately be stored as fat. Even though we are in a deficit of energy, the body anyhow will store those calories as fat. And because from those 2000 calories not everything is used as fuel, and we are in an energy deficit, the brain will signal that we are hungry again. So we have eaten the required 2000 calories, but not all of them reached the destination. Why some calories are stored and not all of them are burned? Because not all calories are equal. Every calorie can come from one of the three sources: proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids or fats. And human body responds differently to each one of them, and all of them have different functions in the body. Proteins are mainly used as bricks for constructing and repairing the muscle tissues and the body as a whole, and they are used as energy only in the cases of emergency. Then no carbs and fats are available. So leaving proteins aside, we are coming to two energetic pathways of the Homo sapiens, which are getting our fuel from burning carbs or burning fats. And pay attention, there is no mistake, burning carbs or fats, not burning carbs and fats, because we cannot use simultaneously both types of fuel. Every minute of our day, we can either burn carbs or fats, but not both of them in the same time. So, how is it decided at each moment which source should be used as energy? Well, there are two great players, two hormones, two conductors who are the masters of these processes, and they are called insulin and glucagon. They work as partners, but in an inverse correlation. What does this mean is that the more we have of the one, the less we have of the other. Insulin is responsible for burning carbs, and glucagon is responsible for burning fat. When we eat carbs, they are broken down into glucose and enter the bloodstream. Since the blood glucose level is critical for our well-being and its normal range is in quite a narrow corridor, it is critical that all the incoming glucose is distributed to cells or stored as soon as possible. Normally, we have in our blood just 2 tablespoons of glucose. Imagine, just 2 tablespoons. And this is the level at which it should be kept. But just a medium slice of pizza will guarantee additional 2 tablespoons of glucose in our blood. And that is twice as much as we should have. And this is where insulin is taking the lead. The moment the level of glucose is rising, which is happening when we eat carbs, insulin is released into the bloodstream and it opens up the cells for taking in the glucose and storing glycogen, which is basically a bunch of glucose molecules stored together and which can be used later. We can store up to 500 grams of glycogen. 100 grams in our liver, readily available to be injected in the bloodstream at the first necessity, and up to 400 in muscles that are completely dedicated to muscular needs, and this glycogen is not shared with other organs. But because we are usually eating during one meal much more carbs than we can use as energy and store as glycogen for later, and as we know the high level of glucose is dangerous for us, all the excess of glucose has to go somewhere from the blood. And the last available option is to be stored by insulin in the form of fat. It is scientifically proven that we are storing fat only when our insulin level is high, and insulin is over-secreted when we eat sugars and starches, in one word, carbs. After a while, if we don't eat carbs, the level of insulin is decreasing, as there is no more necessity to deal with too much glucose, and the level of glucagon starts to rise. And then this happens, our bodies start to burn fat for energy. First, this fat is broken down into fatty acids and ketone bodies, which are then used by all our organs. Why do we get fat? It is not how much we eat, it is what we eat. The science tells us that obesity is ultimately the result of a hormonal imbalance, not a caloric one. Just remember that you don't lose fat because you cut calories. You lose fat because you cut out the foods that make you fat, the carbohydrates. Then insulin levels are high, we accumulate fat in our fat tissue. When these levels fall, we release fat from our fat tissues and burn it for fuel. And our insulin levels are determined by the carbohydrates we eat. Don't count calories. Eat as much as you wish, but eat green vegetables, healthy fats in abundance, moderate proteins, and please stay away from carbohydrate-rich foods. And let your body get rid of its excess of fat storage, which will happen naturally without starvation or struggle.